All right, looks like we're recording.
Good evening, Reverend.
Check. Hey, buddy. So this is the first of what I hope are many episodes of a YouTube show, Nate Cooks, in which I will be sharing silly cooking projects from my life with you, the wide world of people who watch stuff on YouTube. But it would be boring for me to just talk about food I made. So there's two things that make it not just that. The first and less significant is I'm trying to actually record video of the process from beginning to end and not in a polished for TV cooking show way, but like you'll like to see me walk over to the mini fridge and grab a beer while I'm letting a smoker come up to temp and stuff like that. I've cut some of it so that you don't just get mercilessly bored. But so that's part of it. And then the second is I will have somebody as a co-host or a guest on every episode who is going to both talk through the cooking project with me and hopefully, at least in a lot of cases, give me a little bit of shit for the mistakes that I make and the things I do wrong and ask some good questions so that we can learn and have a good time all at once. And so my first co-host is is certainly the person that I've cooked for the most people with in the world. My friend Lucas Marr, who I'm going to let introduce himself from wherever it is he finds himself with a beautiful Art Deco chandelier in the background.
Hi, Lucas Marr. I'm currently in a shitty Airbnb in Worcester, Massachusetts. As you
Ooh.
can tell, there's a chandelier, and that's the extent of my accommodations. So yeah, let's see where this journey takes us.
Uh, yeah. So for folks who are watching at home, we're learning all of the technology as we go. So I'm going to share this video with Lucas here,
I have not seen this
and
video.
yeah, he has not watched it. I sent it to him ahead of time, but he couldn't be bothered to watch me cook, which he's done before. Well, I think this is going to work. Um, you can see that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get after it. The transitions function, and also have way too much tail on the end of this video. So what was happening here is I hadn't figured out what we were going to do yet in terms of recording, and I was just recording like a regular jerk recording the cooking show. So I cut all the audio out so that they could hear us talk about me instead. But I'm about to make a rub. I'm going to use the same rub for two pork butts and two briskets.
Important question. How many star wipes are we going to have in this footage?
Oh, I used every possible transit. I don't think I used the same transition twice, right? Like, so when making serious videos, I'm very, very particular about very basic transitions all the time. But I had to go for it, and so I went big. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and comment here. So the rub is going to be about a quarter cup of salt, about half of that in seasoned salt, about half of that in pepper, garlic powder, probably some MSG, probably more MSG than most people are comfortable with.
If you don't
And
got food
then
flavor, you don't got to rub.
as like a wild card, maybe some cumin or chili powder. But let's see how it goes. So yeah, there's a seasoned salt.
Remember, I am trying to make enough for four large pieces of meat. Confession, through TV magic, I made enough for two and a half large pieces of meat and had to go back and make some more. But that was a day later and everything was fine. I think this is probably the point in this conversation where I'm either talking about my magic secret ingredient or I'm justifying the use of MSG, which you might have heard me refer to as food flavor earlier. So a friend of mine, John Allen's uh, uh, family calls it food flavor because his father had a long-term romantic relationship with someone from East Asia. And in the translation of what MSG was, that's what they called it. And it was too good to not continue to use.
So it looks like my
Yep,
guess at what
garlic.
your rub is pretty on board.
Yep. I'm about to. Oh, this is where I point out something that freaks people out. You know what you can do with spices that clump because you live in Houston where it's humid? Crush them.
Squeeze them.
But
Now what's
that's
that in the
not just
bag
cumin.
there?
It's garam masala.
Okay, a little Indian flavor.
Yeah. So the thinking was, there's some cinnamon and some clove and some cumin and other things in garam masala, and like all that stuff plays well with smoke. So in addition to being a little bit of Indian flavor, it was Indian flavor that works pretty well. Like, there's often some of those notes in something really good tandoori from some tandoori place, and we decided to go with it. People seemed to like the final product, so always got to call out the heritage and also use good flavor. Yeah, check out
Look
that
at that
transition.
terrific white. Okay,
Um,
so
uh,
this mustard thing is something I picked up from one of my dad's friends who did barbecue cook-offs, which is how Nathan got this. We don't work this quickly, but it does help to bind on your flavoring. It doesn't really
Look at
impart
those
any
two
mustard
beautiful
flavor.
butts. No, I wonder if there might be a tiny bit of acid, but it certainly doesn't taste like mustard. Oh, you'll really like this video. It might give you a headache. So this is those two pork butts that you saw wrapped up in plastic bags were given to guys that I tailgate with for ice sporting events to smoke on their smokers based on available real estate. And this is no slight to their cooking ability. You could train a very smart border collie who had a Traeger on how to make a good pork butt. So they took care of those, did a great job. And I had the briskets at my house because it's a little more complicated to get a brisket just right. So this is me
Look,
packing
do
the bowl.
not be disrespectful of the Carolinas, okay? Like they are smarter than border collies, barely.
Now, sure. I mean, and don't get me wrong, pork butt's delicious, but it's just so forgiving.
It is not a hard barbecue meat at all.
No.
So are we jumping forward in time here from pork
Yeah,
butt
so
rub
that first one
to
was on, I want to say Wednesday night to go on Friday night. And this is actually Friday. You can see my bag of charcoal fell on the ground and exploded everywhere. So I'm trying to waste not, want not here. Gloves for safety. This is me walking, which, is a little bit of motion sickness. It was windy. So my water pan blew across the yard.
so you have
This
a
was
GoPro
shot with a
before bed.
GoPro mounted to my head. Yeah.
It's not the
Looking
best
every bit as
footage.
cool as you expected.
This is horrible.
Right. Yeah. I was trying something here. There was a whole concept. Uh it it probably won't be how I do things in the future.
Tell me when it's over.
So
I'm gonna get a seizure.
yeah, is that good, huh?
Okay, this is a
So,
choice.
there's there's brisket one, there's
Okay,
brisket two
how big are those
from
briskets?
they're both just a hair under 14
Okay, it's good size.
pounds, that is. Yep. Quite a bit of fat cap. There's me overshooting, taking some fat cap off.
Sure enough. What'd you
So
do with
what is
that
it you're
fat
looking
cap?
for? It's sitting in my fridge to make into tallow, which I probably won't do because it's been a week and I had high hopes and didn't get there. But I have a
That
bunch
checks
of
out.
great beef tallow in my fridge that I have made out of fat that I have cut off of these same beef vendors briskets before from the folks at Raising Them Right that do a very good job. And also, you know, I have an influencer code with them, so it'll be in the description of this video. I can say that now.
Yeah, I mean, might be the time to shout them out.
Yeah, they raise cows well in a cool place in several generations of the same family farm.
They raise them right, okay?
That's right. Beef's awesome. It's
So
go ahead.
here's a question for you. So
Uh-huh.
you cut an awful lot of fat off of that. What's your intention with this brisket? Because I would have left 3/8 of an inch of fat more than you did on this
So
particular piece of meat.
that's not actually the cap side. That was the underside. It had a bit weird
That's the
wraparound
underside.
big piece of fat.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. That's
So
like
what
the
he's
fattiest
referring
underside
to,
I've ever seen.
and well, maybe I lied to you, and I have my two briskets mixed up.
Perhaps.
They both came out good. No, that is the cap. Yeah, it was a less fat on top and more fat on bottom than I'd ever seen before. I remember looking at it and going, "Oh, this seems backwards," but it wasn't backwards. Yeah, so generally speaking, on a brisket, the cap fat will be edible and delicious, and mostly render into something that a lot of people want to eat. And there's some of the fat on the bottom is that way too, but there's the veins of fat that run through it that are hard that you would have to burn the whole thing to the ground before it was worth eating.
It's called
So
the
this
deckle.
one, yeah, well, it's got a bunch of deckle. That's the word I didn't know. What else can we call deckle?
God, this is dizzying. This is not the best television I've ever seen.
It's a proof of concept show, Lucas. It'll get there someday. But yeah, as time went on, I started mounting the camera to things that weren't my face.
Yeah, it's probably wise.
This is actually slowed down from the time lapse as it was with GoPro. So it was a real headache before I did some Final Cut video magic. But yeah, so you'll notice that when Lucas had to sit back from his camera to avoid passing out, I went out and checked on the fire. I find it helpful to remember when you're doing big cooking projects, you're usually doing a few things at once. So you can walk away from the task you're doing to go do the thing you need to do somewhere else and come back to it to try to get stuff to happen at the right basic speed, which is just a practice thing.
Yeah, they have questionable butchery techniques in terms of where the fat ends up on these briskets, which is curious.
They end up tasting very good. Remember where we were talking about something?
Beef related, I'm sure. We're probably putting briskets on.
Soon. So
All right, we'll see what happens.
as Lucas pointed out, this is me setting up my excellent probes for my excellent
Check
off-brand
out the links in
Wi-Fi.
the bio.
Yeah, I'm not here for that one yet. I don't know that Inkbird is really that interested in me sponsoring them because they're half the price of anything related. But it's pretty excellent to be able to do all this before I go have a delicious hot pot meal across town with my wife and cousin and my cousin's wife, and just at the table pull out my phone and make sure nothing has gone horribly wrong at my house with the
So
barbecuing. Oh, this is good. My hose
you
is broken.
do a water pan in your egg.
I do. That's a good point.
Explain that to me, because I would
So
not.
it is not actually to add moisture to the meat. A lot of people think of water pans for steam. When I've got a bunch of a large fatty meat and directly over the coals, because even though those plates are there, it's right over the coals. It's to catch more drippings to keep it from flaming up and causing potential burning problems and temperature control problems.
Curious. Yeah, I mean, like in a side box, I always run a water pan just as a heat sink. But that makes sense, I guess, is if because have you had experience where the fattier meats will burn out? Nice beer.
I have. Yep. That's me having a nice Oktoberfest.
A
This is
little
me
hot
moving
for
slowly enough to
Oktoberfest,
not
I
give
assume.
you today it didn't even hit 90 in Houston for the first time since I think February.
Tremendous.
And it rained. This is me cleaning my second deck that one of the briskets will go on.
I need to get
Yeah.
one of those.
In the future, this will not be my technique. I will only use the helmet cam when recording at regular speed and not moving a lot.
Yeah, this is really quite concerning. So you probing both of them, I see.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to be vertically stacked. They're slightly different shapes, as you will see when I make a fool of myself here in a moment.
Okay, you got to T9 some hose.
Oh, that was actually me looking at the GoPro app to make sure I was still recording.
Ooh,
For
egg
beer,
hound.
important.
Just
And imagine the lack of clutter and cleanliness in the yard helped with the shaky video not being distracting and headache causing too. So I tried to put the narrower brisket on the bottom first, right? Not realizing that in addition to having a narrower width, deeper. So then I had to put the flatter one pushed under there. I got everything where I needed it to go. And yeah, this is the part
okay.
that's awesome. I just
Ooh,
left for dinner, and I was gone for a couple hours once I got my temperature where I wanted it to be. So this is me making salsa verde. Uh, Bought tomatillos, had a bunch of peppers from my parents' little vegetable garden at their farm in the hill country, red onions, and I'm gonna prep everything, take it over and rinse it off, and then blast it on the Blackstone for a little while to get some char and some color. It's gonna be the base for the barbecue sauce for the pulled pork, as well as for a dressing for the slaw that I will make to go with the pulled pork and the beef.
so why'd you go Blackstone instead of just the broiler? Because you have it.
Well, I have it and it's fun to play with. Also, as you just pointed out, I was in Texas and the highs of those days were supposed to be 105. And I really try not to turn on my oven when it's 100 degrees outside so that my house
Right.
is cool enough for people to live in. Because,
Okay.
that's a little bit of olive oil and salt, nothing crazy. It's me looking for things. Oh, that was a good cut. So this is my fancy studio lighting, which is a Klieg light pointed at my Blackstone in my backyard.
It checks out.
You know, Searing up some veggies, being watched by Kelby the dog. It's interesting that every time the video is pretty easy to watch, I'm either drinking my beer or playing with my cell phone.
Checks out. All right, so we got a little char on everything. I assume that's going to go into a food processor.
Actually, because of the volume, just did it in that bucket. We'll get to watch it, but with a immersion blender. You also get to watch me furiously pick out the pieces of onion that I left too big and cut them on the cutting board and then put them back in the pot. Because a immersion blender is not good at blending an entire, half of an onion sized slice of onion.
This is not the best video I've ever watched.
But the quality is stunning.
Got that GoPro. Links in the bio. GoPro helmet cam.
Yeah. I'm hoping that for the studio audience, having the video of us talking will give them like a safe home base to train their eyes to when overwhelmed by the actual footage.
Let's just add some like anime seizure inducing flashing
But
intervals.
interestingly, without lime juice, I used some apple cider vinegar because it was going to end up being a dressing, right? And so no lime juice and no cilantro was really good salsa verde. Just tomatillo, onion, garlic, jalapeno, bell pepper, salt, apple cider vinegar. Looking for something. Oh yeah, bowl. Because I had to split it, see, because some of it was going to go in the barbecue sauce, and some of it was going to go into that same container with some sugar there. Yeah. So this is me making the slaw dressing. So extra celery seed. I'm running to grab there. Black pepper.
Now, when a recipe calls for half tablespoon of celery seed, listen to that recipe. Do not put a half cup, as Nathan has been known to do.
That's a good point. Celery seed is awesome, but you can overdo it. So I didn't get video of me making the barbecue sauce, which ended up being really good. So we'll talk about that while I pull pork, because when pork has been smoked properly, which this stuff has, so the one that went in first was wrapped in paper. The one that went in second was wrapped straight into foil and was a good bit juicier. So pro tip for those of you pulling pork at home, if you wrap it in something to get it up to temp, that something should be just straight up into foil for pork processing.
I think if you're wrapping anything, foil's the answer. Aaron Franklin would disagree because he's running a business and paper is cheaper than foil. Fight me, but that's the reason he does paper, is it's cheaper. I do not believe that there's any other benefit for using paper.
I did the briskets in paper, but I have it, so Perhaps so. So
Yeah,
the
I mean,
barbecue sauce
go ahead.
is that salsa verde, sugar, a little more apple cider vinegar, a little bit of mustard, and just a tiny bit of mayonnaise, actually. And it was really good.
Yeah, this video footage is way better.
Yeah,
With
it's
this
sitting on
tail
a
camera.
tiny tripod, which is fun. We'll also get to see the shots that our friend Nick took of me, so you can check my vibe as tailgate pit boss. Because while my initial footage might not have been good, my vibes were on point.
Yeah, my wife had some comments
Check
about
out these
this
vibes.
ridiculous tattoos. Um,
Uh, None of those tattoos are ridiculous. I would
yeah,
call one of them absurd.
you call
Check
it.
out that transition.
Look at that wipe.
Yeah. So pulled pork's out on the buffet. Here comes two briskets that you didn't see me pull off for some reason because
Now,
I forgot to
this
take
brisket is
footage.
not being used as just a traditional Texas sliced brisket, right? There's something about the sauce or
No, it's
what's
just going to be it's brisket on a steam table. The first one more of ended up in more of a busted into chips situation than I might ordinarily want. Like some of that it was more cap than flat. Some of it was I hadn't cut a brisket in a while and didn't quite find the cap grain quite right.
classic.
So here's
So
me
you're already
looking for the
wrong.
split.
You're wrong.
Oh, here, yeah, we'll let you
The
talk for a
corner
while.
is closest to you. That little
Mhm.
flip up. Yeah, that. Okay, now you're separating them. The furthest right is the grain. I see you not knowing where that is. Still not doing it right. You're kind of at a 2/3 angle there.
Better than no angle at all. So you're
You're
trying to get across the grain with brisket. That's the difference in stringy, not so good brisket and beautiful slices of brisket.
or very
And
chewy brisket.
yes, and the cap and the flat, which are the two parts of a brisket, the grain is usually running in different directions.
They always are. Yeah,
Never
that
say always, Lucas.
okay. Well, that flat you cut off, you should have rotated 45 degrees. So if you were to have rotated your knife to be kind of coming out of your belly button, you'd have been cutting
Yeah,
directly across the grain.
yeah. As I say, I'll do a better job with the second one. The good news was I was feeding a bunch of people who'd been drinking in the sun all afternoon,
No, it
and
looks
it all
fabulous.
got eaten real fast.
I think it'd be very good. It's just the
Yep.
it almost looks a little
See, here
overcooked,
I turned it.
honestly.
I turned at the
There you
end.
go. That's correct. Um, yeah, it looks like you took it off like off the pit at pushing 210, which is why it's falling apart as much as it is.
It really,
Um,
so I can pull the data. I almost pulled the video. It never got past 195, but it stalled between 190 and 195, like a secondary stall for like 2 hours.
yeah,
So it was time rather than temp.
that's where the temperature can kind of screw you up. Um, and I prefer to do. Oh, you're going even further. Um,
And like I said, it's a lot of cap.
it looks fabulous. I miss brisket. Um,
And this guy cut correctly because
yeah,
that's
that
his.
looks really good.
It was very good. I had a guy come up to me unsolicited and was like, "You made this? Yeah, you can." And unimpressively, I said, "Yeah," because I wasn't that overwhelmed by the way I cut. You can replicate this? I've done it before. It's like, why are you not monetizing this?
that that reminds me of the tailgate at the Memphis game or the Memphis bowl game when Greg Gatlin's teammates came up to me and said, "We got to get Greg to come taste this. This is the best brisket I've ever had," which is pretty high praise for the friend of a Texas top 50 barbecue man.
Yeah, for those of you hopefully watching who didn't get motion sickness earlier from other places, Greg Gatlin, former Rice football player, runs what is probably my favorite barbecue place in Houston. It helps that it's almost walking distance from my house. Sides are always awesome. He's also a great dude. Yeah, he's a heck of a pit boss. And yeah, so by the second half of that cap, while not perfect, I was cutting better. Look at that fall apart deliciousness. That's honestly my favorite part. Like a slice of perfectly cut, really well made cap or flat, great. But the stuff that just can't be held in shape, pretty dang tasty.
So this is the Rice Houston game, is that right?
Uh, yes, it is.
Okay. So
You
we're talking
mean
like, go ahead.
you mean the first time Rice has beat the University of Houston in the game of football since 2008? Yes, it was that game.
I think no, that's not correct. 2010, I believe.
I thought
Um,
we'd had it was the first time we'd held the bucket since 2010 because we lost in 2010, but I could be wrong.
I don't know. We camped out for a tailgate in '08, which we won, and I believe we won again in 2010.
Yeah.
Um,
So this is a much more traditionally ratioed brisket of cap to flat.
all right, let's see this. Okay, not doing it right. That's okay.
It
You're at a
looks so. How's that
you're
not
at a
right?
45. Back the footage up. The grain is going directly in the way the knife is going.
I don't think you comprehend just how challenging it is to match up audio on video editing. I'm not going to back the footage up.
That
So then,
looks fabulous, though. I mean, it stuck together really well. Um,
yeah, man, it was this one
so, so did you
much
make a
easier cutting.
sauce for this with that same tomatilla, or what was your?
Uh, was I serving brisket in Texas?
Well, you talked about making a sauce for a slaw. I saw a photo on.
Yeah, so I used half of the barbecue sauce I made for the pulled
That's
pork.
being cut correctly. Good job.
Yeah. The other half I left sitting in a container on the table, people that wanted to put sauce on their brisket. But I did not, go crazy with that. I just left a little bit out there. And a lot of people had the proper etiquette of Texas brisket and did not mess it up with sauce. I also pickled a bunch of onions, um, which we missed footage wise because I think I'm going to do a whole episode on pickle and stuff sometime. Because as you know, one of my deepest held beliefs that we share is people don't pickle enough shit. And
Fair.
so instead of buying a bunch of pickles and slicing a bunch of onions, I just made a bunch of pickled red onions that were served with the barbecue, and they were delicious. Also, this knife was like $20 at a restaurant supply store, and is one of the best investments I've ever made. I don't use it that often, but
It's also
having
like 10 years old at this point.
yeah, having enough blade to easily slice large pieces of meat when you want to do that is again worth $25 all the time. Little chef's cut there, making a appearance. Oh wow! So this again is for vibes, and there's the finished product.
Looks like foil.
Yeah, another problem with serving a bunch of people who are at a tailgate that have been drinking all afternoon is that look at those curtains though. That's the end of our film. Uh, the other thing that happens sometimes is you think the guy that's running around the tailgate with a fancy camera must have taken a picture of a plate of food, and then you check in with them afterwards, and people getting food off the buffet line close to these guys.
That checks out.
And you didn't take one yourself because you were one of those people running around drinking beer all afternoon.
Tremendous. So what did you get wrong on your this project here?
Obviously, the camera work with the GoPro mounted to my forehead left something to be desired at time lapse setting. In
Yes.
terms of the actual food, I did not cut the cap off of the top brisket well. The second brisket held up better. Whether or not I cut it right, you say no, I say yes, and we'll probably argue about that in the future. Um, I think the sauce for the pork was great. The sauce for the slaw was good. Right, so it was a good, relatively light coleslaw. I knew it was going to be hot out. The guys that we tailgate with we're bringing a big thing of baked beans and a big thing of like a creamy barbecue corn situation, which is delicious. And also, when it's a million degrees outside, I wanted something that was more in a salad type temperature with a really heavy meal. So it was a more vinegar based sauce, and I was a little underdressed. I could have made a little more dressing for the amount of cabbage I had in there. Um, I also served a bunch of the sausage that we make every year. People unsurprisingly loved the jalapeno cheese venison sausage.
Yep, that's the crowd pleaser.
Always a crowd pleaser. Um, I didn't take pictures of finished food or of the onion pickling process. I think I thought I had more footage in that 25 minutes. I did. That went quicker than I expected it to.
I agree, it did. There wasn't a ton there. I mean, I don't know what I expected, honestly, because I had not seen a minute of it, but it did seem a little short.
Yeah, well,
What do I
obviously this
know?
is a proof of concept in the first show. So anybody, once we made it big with this Nate Cooks channel that goes way back in the archives and finds this video, can see where we started from. I might start playing with recording at regular speed and using my video editor to do double speed instead of crazy time lapse speed for stuff, right? So that it moves faster than just having to sit and watch everything from beginning to end, but not so fast that you have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about duration, right? And this is going to get into the weeds. It's like not the point of the show, but are you talking 30 minutes? Or are you talking an hour, right? And like, there's a
Yeah.
huge difference. And pick your poison, right? I don't know. People watch YouTube all day long, but
Yeah, shooting for a half hour is good. I think we can do a little better with footage and do that.
I think
But
too.
it's on YouTube, Lucas. So how about you tell the people to let us know in the comments what they'd like to see?
Like and subscribe, and I think you could come in and add some text and say, volumes and times and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. That would be worthwhile. Like what goes in your recipe, because like I know what you cooked because I've cooked it before. Um, the Joe Blow with a green egg might not pick up exactly what you've done. And ultimately the goal here is to, I assume, make fun of you and also make good food. And if the person that doesn't know what you've already cooked doesn't pick that up, that's not very helpful.
That's a good point. I'll see what I can do on some of that stuff. Probably put a couple basic recipes somewhere in captions on the videos. Because of my day job, I got pretty proficient at putting captions on videos in Final Cut when I was a low budget TV producer for worship services for a year and a half during the pandemic. So
That's tremendous.
process through all that PTSD and get that done. But I know you've got sleeping to do before you go back to work tomorrow. I could probably call my spouse back, who's visiting some folks up in Dallas. Hello, family in Dallas. Sorry I'm not there. But yeah, like you said, like and subscribe. This is the beginning. I promise to give you less motion sickness in the videos to come.